You're not overloaded because the world is chaotic. You're overloaded because your organization can only move as fast as the work that waits on you. This is the Agentic Executive. I'm Adrian Cross. In under 10 minutes, we're going to map the real constraint on your output, your personal bottlenecks.
And I'm Amelia Voss. If you ever feel like everything important somehow ends up stuck in your inbox, your calendar, or your head, this episode is essentially a diagnostic scan of why that keeps happening.
Today's concept is the Executive Bottleneck Map. One page, no fluff. It shows where work consistently waits on you, specifically you, so you can redesign those choke points without trying to clone yourself.
Think of it as moving from "I'm too busy" to "here are the exact 4 places where my system slows down because of me, and here's what I'm going to do about each one." The system reveals the truth, and the map is that truth on a single sheet.
We'll follow a simple model. Trace, classify, redesign. First, you trace where work actually sticks to you. Second, you classify those bottlenecks into 4 types, so you see patterns instead of chaos. Third, you redesign the choke points using simple rules and AI as leverage. Let's start with the hook, the hidden cost of being the bottleneck.
Here's the uncomfortable reality. In most executive environments, the limiting factor isn't tools or talent. It's the handful of approvals, decisions, and documents that only you can unblock. Someone on your team is waiting to ship a feature, but they need your yes. Legal is waiting on your comments on a contract. A strategic partner is waiting on a deck only you can finalize. Meanwhile, the system burns time, energy, and morale while it waits.
The cost is not just your stress. It's compounding organizational drag. Projects slip by weeks because a decision sat in your inbox for days. A deal misses the quarter because the contract lived in your head for a little too long. Clarity is leverage, and nowhere is that more true than when you point it at your own throughput.
The good news is this. Your personal bottlenecks are usually concentrated in a surprisingly small number of patterns. Once you see them, you can change them. Precision drives agency.
So let's define the Executive Bottleneck Map. It's a one-page snapshot of where work consistently waits on you, not where you feel busy, where the system objectively pauses because something is sitting on your plate. If a project would move forward immediately if you touched it, and it's not moving, that's a bottleneck candidate.
You're not building a diary of complaints. You're building a constraints map. So you're asking, very specifically, where is there work in progress in the system that stalls because of me? If it wouldn't move even if you worked on it, it doesn't belong on the map. That's just workload.
Exactly. This distinction matters. Many high-agency people blur busy with bottleneck and end up with lists that are emotionally true but operationally useless. The map is about throughput. Where does your involvement, or lack of it, directly gate progress?
Once you have that lens, we move to step 1, trace. For 1 week, you're going to follow the work that sticks to you.
Here's the protocol. For the next 7 days, note any task, decision, or document that stalls because it's on your plate. You're aiming for 10 to 20 examples, not hundreds. Ask yourself, whenever you open your inbox, calendar, or task list, is something actively waiting on me to move forward? If yes, write it down.
Concrete examples help here. You might capture pricing decision for new enterprise tier, team blocked until I choose a range. Or board update draft. Operations won't share numbers widely until this narrative is approved. Or partnership MOU. Legal is on hold until I clarify deal structure.
Notice what you're not capturing. You're not writing busy week or too many meetings. Those are conditions. You're only listing specific artifacts or decisions where, if you touched them today, the system would immediately move.
If you want a quick hack, you can also trace backwards. Look at the last 7 days and scan your sent folder, calendar, or project tools. Anywhere you see people following up, just bumping this, any update, that's a clue. Something was waiting on you.
Now, AI can help even at this tracing stage. You can export a slice of your email or task history and ask an AI assistant to cluster messages where others are explicitly waiting on your response or approval. But even without that, 10 to 20 manually identified items is enough to see the pattern.
After a week of tracing, you have raw data, a list of real bottlenecks. Now we move to step 2, classify. You're going to sort each item into one of 4 bottleneck types: decision, context, craft, or control.
Let's walk through each type. First, decision bottlenecks. These are moments where the team literally cannot proceed because they need your call. Choose vendor A or B. Approve scope. Greenlight a launch. Your judgment is the gating factor.
Second, context bottlenecks. Here, the thing that lives in your head is the blocker. Maybe you're the only one who fully understands the customer nuance behind a pricing change or the history behind a policy. The team is waiting for you to explain the why so they can execute the what.
Third, craft bottlenecks. This is where your personal skill with a specific artifact is the constraint. A board deck only you can make good enough. A key email to a major customer that only you can write. A financial model that only you can structure. The work exists, but you are the single point of quality.
And fourth, control bottlenecks. This is about permissions and authority. You are the only one allowed to sign, ship, or say yes. People could do the work, but they're structurally not allowed to finish without your explicit approval.
Once you have your list of items, go through and tag each one with D, CX, CR, or CT, decision, context, craft, or control. You're looking for clusters. Do you see a majority of items in 1 or 2 categories? That cluster is your real personal bottleneck profile.
For example, if 8 out of 15 items are decision bottlenecks, you don't have a time management problem. You have a decision architecture problem. If most are context, then your mental model hasn't been externalized. Patterns create power.
Now, we're ready for step 3, redesign. The goal is not to work harder. The goal is to change the shape of the work so less of it needs you in the first place, and the work that still needs you arrives in a decision-ready form.
We'll take each bottleneck type and pair it with a specific fix. For decision bottlenecks, the move is decision thresholds. For context, it's context packets. For craft, modular drafts. And for control, delegated control with guardrails.
Start with decision bottlenecks. If you're the decision bottleneck, your team is probably bringing you underspecified questions. What should we do? Instead, you want them bringing you structured choices. So you set decision thresholds. If the contract value is under this amount and risk is below this bar, you decide. If it's above, bring me 2 options with your recommendation and the trade-offs.
This is where AI is powerful. You can ask an AI assistant to turn a messy situation into a decision memo template, context, options, pros and cons, and a recommended path. Your team fills that in. You review and choose. Instead of spending 30 minutes reconstructing the situation, you spend 5 minutes applying judgment.
Next, context bottlenecks. Here, you design context packets, small, reusable bundles of explanation that you can hand off instead of re-explaining from scratch every time. For example, a 1-page note on how we evaluate enterprise customers, or how we think about discounting in Q4.
AI can draft these packets for you. You brain dump into a voice note or a rough document, then ask AI to turn it into a clean, reusable brief or FAQ. Over time, your head knowledge becomes system knowledge. People reference the packet instead of pinging you on Slack.
Third, craft bottlenecks. Here, the move is modular drafts. When you're the only one who can make something good, you redesign the artifact into components that others can assemble. For example, for a board deck, you might define standard slide templates, narrative blocks, and a checklist. Your team assembles a version 1 using those modules. You only do the final 10 to 20% pass.
Again, AI is your force multiplier. Have AI generate the first draft of the email, the deck outline, or the customer memo based on a brief from your team. Your unique craft becomes a reviewing and refining function, not the entire production pipeline.
Finally, control bottlenecks. If people are waiting on you purely because of formal authority, the redesign is delegated control with guardrails. You define clear rules. Within these bounds, budget, risk, brand exposure, you don't need my approval. If you cross a boundary, here's the escalation path.
You can also use AI to help codify those guardrails. Feed it examples of past approvals and rejections, and ask it to summarize the implicit rules you're using. That becomes a draft decision policy you refine, then hand to your team.
So, we've threaded AI through each redesign move, but let's call it out explicitly. AI's role in this entire process is threefold: helping you trace and cluster the stuck items, drafting context packets and decision memos, and creating reusable templates so future work arrives in a more structured form.
You can literally upload your list of bottlenecks and ask AI, cluster these by type, decision, context, craft, control, and suggest patterns. Then draft one decision threshold rule, one context packet outline, and one template I could share with my team.
Now, let's clean up some failure modes, because this is where smart people overcorrect. First failure mode: turning this into a vague list of complaints. I'm busy, there's too much going on, everything is urgent. That's not a bottleneck map, that's a stress log. Anchor to objective criteria. Work that is waiting on you and would move if you acted.
Second failure mode: trying to fix everything at once. You see decision, context, craft, and control bottlenecks, and suddenly you want a 30-slide reorg. Instead, treat this like a series of reversible experiments. Start with the dominant type and run one small redesign move for 2 weeks. Observe, adjust.
Third failure mode: over-delegating judgment to AI or to the team without clear standards. If you push decisions away without thresholds or hand drafts to AI without reviewing, you don't remove the bottleneck. You just move it downstream and add quality risk.
That's why we keep pairing delegation and AI with explicit guardrails and review checkpoints. You stay the owner of judgment. You just stop being the owner of every intermediate step.
So here's your action step for this week. First, run a light trace. Capture 10 to 20 items where work is clearly waiting on you. Don't overthink it. Second, classify each one as decision, context, craft, or control. See what dominates. Third, choose one bottleneck type and implement one redesign move around it. One decision threshold, one context packet, one modular draft, or one delegated control rule with guardrails.
The goal is not to build the perfect map. The goal is to see your real constraints clearly enough to run your first experiment. Patterns create power, and small structural changes compound.
If this briefing helped you see your own bottlenecks a little more clearly, make your next move count. Follow the show, hit subscribe, and make this a daily 10-minute upgrade to how you run your system. You're listening to the Agentic Executive. Stay agentic.